Hey everyone, it's VM Campos, Batman fan. In the year 2020, we look back at a retrospective of one of Batman's most important comic plots, Knightfall. First published in 1993, this epic story was in three large parts: Knightfall, Knightquest, and Knight's End. This video will be a cover retrospective of that series. There will be no spoilers of the actual story inside, but the covers can give away a lot, so spoiler alert on that. You're encouraged to read the comic yourself, either digitally, pick up one of those really thick volumes, or get the original floppies to enjoy. I like single issues because then they've got the letters column, they've got vintage ads and so forth, and to see the original colorization is way better than the modern reprint colorization that is du jour. Let's begin. Okay, so Knightfall, we might know the big strokes of it all in the current world of Batman in the year 2020, but let's say we were only going by the covers. And I'll fill in some of the gaps here and there. So here's the big idea. Batman has to battle all of the escaped criminals of Arkham Asylum. Someone breaks them all out, blows up Arkham Asylum so that everyone can escape. The Joker, the Riddler, Mad Hatter, etc. And Batman, of course, is the only one to stop him. Some background details that were going on at this point. This was after the Funeral for a Friend storyline, part of the Death of Superman storyline. So Superman had been killed, and that was also affecting Batman. Plus, he was just pushing himself to the limits. So that was a recipe for disaster. This is the first issue here. It's the prelude, actually. Batman 491, and there's other preludes. There's the introduction of Azrael, the introduction of Bane, etc. But we can kind of start it all right here because this is when Arkham Asylum gets destroyed and everyone escapes. So here we have this epic cover. Kelly Jones did most of the covers, and they're all amazing, very memorable. Doug Monk and Jim Aparo did the interior work. So here we have Batman just looking amazingly epic. He's the only one that can stop the worst villains of Arkham Asylum, the worst villains that Arkham has to offer. So a cool way to start off the series. And then it begins, Knightfall Chapter 1. So what was really cool was they had this little logo at the top that was going to be slowly eclipsed, just to show you this is the progression of the series, because this was happening not only in the Batman comic, but also in Detective Comics and other Batman-related books. So here we have Batman number 492. This is basically versus Mad Hatter and all of his insanity at his birthday party, tea party thing. So very cool dynamic aspect here. Batman just reaching out like, I gotta stop this psychopath. And then one of these hoods is being totally destroyed. Now if you look right here, this is the newsstand edition version of the cover. May 4th, 1993 is when this debuted, so do the math on that for me because I'm pretty bad at it. This is when Knightfall number 1 came out. Now I've also got the direct edition, which is the one without the barcode right there. So if you're a reader, get whichever one, of course. If you're a collector, you probably want the newsstand one, especially in a good quality, because newsstand books nowadays in the year 2020 are starting to become pretty valuable, especially books in the 90s and forward. So Knightfall Chapter 1 again, Batman 492, but direct edition from comic shops. Then we go over to Chapter 2, Knightfall. This is over at Detective Comics, number 659, featuring Batman. And here we have Batman battling Amygdala, just this like super hulking, massive monster that is pretty much all bronze and no brain. And over here we have the ventriloquist. An interesting story with the ventriloquist is that he escaped, but he couldn't escape with his actual, what's his name again? Scarface, the dummy. And so he's got this like weird Mr. Socko, I think. He's got a sock puppet instead, so he's like totally freaking out because he doesn't have his usual boss. And again, Kelly Jones cover right here, Rubik's Cube, unauthorized one. And very epic cover. I like the shaft of light over here, with a few highlights of color on the villain, and then Batman, of course, struggling to keep up with the brute. Knightfall number 3 at Batman 493. Here we have just one of my most favorite covers in the whole series. Just this weird, brooding creature of the night Batman with these Kelly Jones ears that were just so over the top, so nightmarish during this plotline. Then we have the ruthless killer Mr. Zaz. All of those scars on his body are basically murders that he has committed, so very grotesque, realistic character, villain. and then a dead girl over here. So this is like really the darkness, some of the darkest steps of the Batman storyline and such. We've got this crazed killer who is in a girls' boarding school. He's gonna kill everyone there, and of course Batman's gotta push himself to the limits to stop this crazed killer and save the whole school of girls. And just beautiful cover right here. The purples, the drapery of the cape, and then Batman's cowl, who we don't see much of it except the darkness in his eyes. Over at issue number 4, so Knightfall 4 on Detective 660, here we have a Sam Keith cover. So Sam Keith, who created the Max, and at this time was just about over at Image Comics as well at the Max, but he was still doing some books for other publishers, DC and such. And here we have, okay, so the plot line here is this is a rematch between Bane and Killer Croc. Before the beginning of Knightfall, Bane battles Croc and totally wrecks him. So here's the rematch in the sewer, and then Robin butts in, and he's kind of... This is, of course, the Tim Drake Robin after the death of Jason Todd, which that's part of the reason also Batman is off of his game in this plot line. He's still reeling after, you know, the death of Jason Todd, the death of Superman, just pushing himself too much. And here Robin is concerned about him. Tim Drake Robin is concerned about Batman, but he's just pushing him away and saying, no, I am the knight, I must do it myself. And Robin's getting in trouble with the two big bad guys. Here we have actually Chuck Dixon, Jim Ballant, and Scott Hanna, creative team here. So Jim Ballant went on to do the Catwoman series of the 90s, and later on his own Tarot. Back to Batman number 494, Knightfall number 5. Have you been noticing that the eclipse is coming over the symbol? I loved that. And here we have Batman versus the Joker plus Scarecrow. They team up together to do shenanigans. Batman gets blasted by the fear gas, which triggers some horrific memories of the Joker killing Jason Todd, which causes Batman to totally wail on both of them, but even more on the Joker, like almost like incapacitating him with such violence because the toxin is just going to his head. And again, look at these huge bat ears that are just so over the top, but they fit so well with the surrealism of this book. I love how the Scarecrow, obviously Jonathan Crane, lanky, scrawny Jonathan Crane, is trying to lunge at Batman through the shadows, but of course when you're hopped up on that toxin, you might actually be scary. Number 6, this is back to Detective, this is 661. Okay, here on this one, what's going on is, so the mayor has been kidnapped by the Joker and Scarecrow, and Batman's gotta get him back, and then there's also that arsonist, a villain that is trying to torch everything, and it's all coming together, and Batman's just being pushed to his limits, physical limits, mental limits, trying to recapture all of the escaped villains, and in the shadows is waiting Bane, who masterminded the whole thing. Bane wants to get Batman as the personification of justice in Gotham. Bane is not having that, so he wants to weaken Batman and then go after him in the end. Before that, we have Batman 495, Knightfall number 7. Here we have Batman versus Poison Ivy. So Poison Ivy, of course, is using her wiles to like totally drug up Batman, incapacitate him, and she's got him exactly where he wants him. This cover is not phallic at all. So amazing musculature on Batman's like barrel-chested body with, again, these huge ears, which maybe have some other significance upon this cover. This shows that even the lower tier villains can get the drop on Batman if things go right. I love these windows in the background from like a greenhouse with the red tones, shadows, silhouettes of the plants, and then purples over here, really cool colors. Batman defeated at the hands of Poison Ivy. Then we go over to Knightfall Part 8, Detective 662. Okay, this is when, there's another Sam Keith cover right here. It's like very impressionistic, isn't it? It's just like basic outlines of the character, very scratchy, very surreal. Graham Nolan does the interiors here, this is when Batman catches the arsonist villain Firebug, I believe is his name, and just puts away one more villain that's been just causing epic havoc in Gotham City after everyone's escaped from Arkham Asylum. Number 9, this is when the fear toxin really overtakes Batman. He's just at his breaking point. He's remembering the death of Robin. He's wailing on Joker, who of course is just too insane to care. And Batman is just, he can't take it anymore. He's beaten, he's broken, but he must continue to stop the rampage of all of the villains that were freed from a destroyed Arkham Asylum. I always loved this cover in terms of this is Batman just completely mentally broken. this fist just pounding the Joker with blood and this hatching in the background. This is number 9. This is only halfway through the epic plotline. What more could happen in Knightfall? Well, on the next part over here, after defeating Riddler and Joker, but they still set off a bazooka blast in the subway that causes it all to flood. Batman did manage to save the mayor. And this cover, this is another one of these epic covers. Kelly Jones was just amazing on these covers. And it's just, I love this. It's a close-up. It's Batman just like struggling in the water. Rats crawling upon his face. Rats in a sinking ship. I love the wrinkles of the cowl and then the water, the stippling in the water, the dark purple background. We're over halfway through the eclipse of the bat signal with the biggest revelation, the biggest plot point of the story coming up next. You thought it could never happen. The breaking of the Batman. Batman number 497, Knightfall Part 11. Bane versus Batman. Batman defeated, broken in his own Batcave. After coming home, we see Alfred sprawled upon the floor. Bane confronts Batman. Batman is no match for Bane. After a vicious beating, Bane utterly defeats Batman by breaking him over his leg. This epic cover right here is seared into the minds of DC Comics fans in the 90s. This is a gimmick cover in that it has a flap that pulls over. It's got this black and white leaflet sort of thing. Kind of interesting, I guess. I'm not sure why it's only just a piece of it. It might have been cool for it to have been the whole cover with right in the center. You thought it could never happen. That would have been really cool. Then you flip it over and then you see there Batman broken by Bane himself. I also have the newsstand edition. So this happened on July 13th, 1993. So here is the newsstand edition without the flap. There's several different versions of this, even like second printings and so forth, different versions of this cover. We had not gotten into the full swing of gimmick covers in the 90s, so this one right here was their DC's attempt at that before we got into hollow foil, embossed, etched covers and all of that with holograms out the yin-yang. But anyway, here we have number 11, the defeat of Batman within the Batcave. Continuing that plot line and in Detective 664, here is another epic cover. Bane holds Batman completely broken, defeated, bats scattering everywhere. Remember this pose. This pose is going to come back in more of these covers within this plot. So right here, Bane doesn't kill Batman, he just wants to break him. Then he takes him to the top of a building and throws him into the Gotham Town Square to show that I have defeated your savior, Gotham City. I rule the night. I am Bane. We get a couple of side stories over here. Now we jump over to Showcase 93. This was an anthology series I was publishing at the time. This is Showcase number 7. It's Knightfall Part 13. So what's happening here is a side story, a sort of a prequel. This happened before the breaking of Batman. It's Batman versus Two-Face, and Batman's on trial and so forth. And the next one as well, Showcase 93, number 8, part 14. So it's continuing that plot line. It has more than one story here. So it's divided into 2 issues. But basically, Batman is in over his head. Robin tries to help. Batman says, "Get out of here, kid. I can handle it myself." But then, of course, it's just another traumatic battle versus one of Batman's greatest villains and greatest failures, Harvey Two-Face Dent. Okay, so here's a pretty cool cover. We've got Catwoman. This is the Jim Ballant style of a Catwoman outfit, and Bane lording over her. So basically now Bane is starting to consolidate his power over Gotham City. Now what's not depicted on the covers yet is that Batman, Bruce Wayne, passes on the mantle to someone else to be Batman, to continue the legend of Batman so that the city doesn't descend into chaos. And who does he pick? Of course he picks of course he picks Jean-Paul Valley. Who? Well, that was Azrael, which was Batman's protege at the time, although Azrael was a bit of an unstable psychopath because he was brainwashed to be an assassin from birth. So Batman chose to give him the mantle, and then Robin look out for him and so forth and guide him, instead of giving it to Dick Grayson, who Dick Grayson would later go on to resent. Dick Grayson, of course, was the first Robin who became Nightwing, so Batman passed on the mantle to a new, more vicious Batman. Literally, because then the next story is, well, now Batman is still prowling the streets and such, but it's Jean-Paul Valley, psychopath, and he's doing a much more rougher touch on the crime in Gotham City, much to Robin's shock. I think this cover is like totally over the top, that he's like beating them with like a nail club. That doesn't really happen, although he is pretty brutal to the bad guys, and this guy's totally dead. Oh, I forgot to mention over here also, this is one of the newsstand editions. It doesn't have like the date on it, which is interesting. Remember, the other ones did have a date. This one's just got the barcode, which means it's a newsstand edition. And then this one is the direct edition. Knightfall Part 17, Batman versus Bruce Wayne. So again, after Bruce Wayne is defeated by Bane, he has to putter around on a wheelchair to recover, perhaps. And he passed on the mantle to Jean-Paul Valley. And here, basically, Valley's like, "Your ways are done, old man. Batman now has to be more brutal than ever. Time for the 90s. Check out my metal gauntlets." So, the 90s. He started to upgrade Batman into this sort of like super armor sort of style, which was a mixture of the Azrael outfit plus Batman and Jean-Paul Valley's psychopathity. So Knightfall number 17, the eclipse is complete. Then we go to number 18, Batman 666. Here we have the rematch, Bane versus Batman. Jean-Paul Valley, Azrael Batman. I love this cover. It's just another hulking Bane with the spotlight on him and these green tones behind him. Batman kind of cowering at him. Not really, but see how Bane is like towering over him again. The eclipse is total at the moment. So it's the rematch, and it goes off in a bit of a stalemate, although Batman does inflict a lot of damage on Bane very viciously with like spikes and all of that, and he starts losing a lot of blood. So they go their separate ways. Of course, Bane can't go to the hospital or whatever, so he just keeps injecting himself with more venom just to dull the pain and so forth. In the meantime, Jean-Paul Valley is totally then upgrading his suit even more powerfully than ever before to finally take on Bane once and for all, and that happens in Batman number 500. Remember this cover? First it was Bane defeating Batman, and now we've got Batman defeating Bane. But wait a minute, that's Batman new and cool for the 90s, totally armored, high tech. And it's not Bruce Wayne. Bruce has left the country to try to recover. There's a new Batman in town, and it's permanent, because as we see by the logo here, that is a new Batman. He defeats Bane. He fights against his programming to not kill him on the spot, because justice must prevail. And this ushers in a new age of Batman, because the Knightfall has happened. So this is the regular cover. I also have the over-the-top 90s gimmick cover version of things. Let me actually fully show you what this one looks like. So it's basically a beautiful foil treatment and heavy cardstock and everything here. So that looks really cool, very thick, high quality, no longer Kelly Jones cover on that one, but then it also opens up to reveal, whoa, here we have the new Batman going to defeat Bane because Robin's in trouble as usual, and we got the foil spot treatment on that cover. Batman number 500 variant cover back in the 90s when we were having so many amazing variant gimmick covers that bankrupted the system and caused a huge crash. But I loved every minute of it. So here we have the classic suit Batman, or the suit of the 70s, and then we have the brand new suit of the 90s. Jean-Paul Valley, new Batman. Knightfall is complete. Before we wrap up the video, let's look at a couple more things. After Knightfall was Knightquest, the Crusade. This was Bruce Wayne trying to rejuvenate himself so that he can come back to be Batman. In the meantime, we have the new 90s Batman. Once again, very over-the-top, metal, robotic, cybernetic, whatever, and it's got the brand new logo that goes on from this point. This goes on for several issues, and we have Knight's End, where we have Batman, Bruce Wayne, come back to reclaim the mantle away from Jean-Paul Valley. But lastly, I wanted to show this. Oh, it's the same sort of posing, and here we have Batman totally defeating Robin. Reminiscent of the previous issues, just coming back to these tropes that they established. Notice also here now we're seeing direct sales. So issue 668, variant cover 1, first printing, coming from just having the creators in the box right there. So direct edition, the comic shop edition, and I think that's a pretty cool place to end it right here as Knightquest continues. So that was my cover retrospective of Knightfall. There's still a lot of plot points that are missing, of course. You need to read each one yourself so you can see Bane's crew, Zombie, Bird, and Trog, and Batman's deteriorating mental state and so forth, and of course the letters column in here, people talking about the plot, the old ads, there's like these cool posters that preview a future issue of this amazing epic from back in the 90s. The plot of this event resonated in Batman for years to come, and then of course went on to happen in the movies and reach a wider audience. But do yourself a favor and go back and read these classic Batman books. After all, comic book movies are nice, but comic books are way better. So what about you? Did you read these books back in the day? Did you read them recently? Did you read them in digital? Do you have these variant covers and so forth? Were you as shocked to see these developments as I was back in the day? Tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, ring the bell, battle the Minotaur, etc. Go to my Patreon, patreon.com/vmcampos. Follow for free to be alerted to everything that I do regarding comic books, Comic-Con, cosplay, Magic the Gathering, etc. And join me every Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific time on my YouTube, where we talk about the comics that are coming in the following week. It's the top comic book picks with VM Campos. Hope to see you there. Once again, thanks for watching the video. This has been VM Campos, and I'll see you in Gotham City.